You know that feeling, right? A new project lands, your team gets reorganized, or the whole company shifts its strategy. Well, that constant shuffle, it actually has a name: change management. Today, we're going to demystify what it is, and more importantly, how to get through it. Let's dive in. This quote just hits home, doesn't it? Everyone likes change, but no one likes the process of change. It's such a paradox. I mean, we all want the great outcome, the promotion, the better product, but that journey to get there, yeah, that's where things start to get a little messy. So, that tricky process of change we're talking about, it has a formal name: change management. And it's not just some corporate buzzword. It's actually a structured way of thinking about how to handle the human side of big shifts. It's really all about managing our reactions, our fears, and our expectations to make these transitions way smoother for everyone involved. But hang on, why do we even need to manage change so carefully in the first place? Well, it's because it is absolutely everywhere. So in this first part, we're going to look at the forces that are always pushing organizations to adapt. Why is everything always changing? Okay, so the pressure to change really comes from two main directions. First, you've got your internal forces. These are things happening inside the company, like a big push for more profit, or reorganization to be more efficient, or even just conflict between departments. Then you've got the external forces, everything coming from outside the company walls. We're talking new tech, new laws, and of course, what customers and competitors are doing. And here you can really see how all those forces kind of smash together. To survive in today's world, organizations have to be faster, they have to be more focused on quality, and they absolutely have to be obsessed with their customers. It's like a perpetual balancing act, juggling all these new competitors and technologies. It never stops. So, what's the end game with all this disruption? What are companies trying to achieve? Well, what's really interesting here is the balance. Yeah, sure, increasing productivity is at the top. But look right behind it. Increasing employee involvement and morale are almost just as important, along with developing new skills. It's a pretty clear sign that good change isn't just about the bottom line anymore. It's about building a better, more engaged place to work. All right, so we've covered why change happens. Now we need to tackle the second and maybe trickier piece of the puzzle: the human side. Why exactly is the process of change so incredibly hard for us? This image really captures that feeling, doesn't it? The anxiety. And here's the thing, at the heart of it all is that people often have very good reasons to be afraid. Think about it. Maybe their past experiences with change meant layoffs, or a new boss they didn't like, or losing some status. That history creates a really natural and frankly understandable fear of what's coming next. Let's break it down a bit. This resistance, it isn't just some vague negative feeling. It's fueled by very real, very specific fears. You've got the fear of failure, the fear of losing your job, the fear of looking stupid while you're trying to learn a new system, or that deep fear of just losing control over your own work. I mean, these are powerful emotions that can make just about anyone dig their heels in. So, if change is going to happen no matter what, and our resistance to it is totally natural, are we just stuck? No, not at all. This is where change management as a real discipline comes in to save the day. So now we're going to open up a toolkit of proven models that are designed to help us manage this whole process effectively. One of the classic models is Kurt Lewin's three-step process. It's actually super intuitive. First, you unfreeze. It's like melting an ice cube. You have to break down the old way of thinking to even create a motivation for change. Then comes movement. That's the actual shift, learning the new processes. But honestly, the most important step is the last one: refreezing. You have to lock in that new way of working so it becomes the new normal. If you don't, people will almost always drift back to their old habits. Okay, here's another really powerful tool. It's called force field analysis. The easiest way to think about it is like a supercharged pro and con list, but for a big change. It's a technique where you sit down and identify all the forces that are pushing for the change. Those are your driving forces. And then you list out all the forces pushing against it, the restraining forces. And here's what that actually looks like. By listing and even scoring these forces, you get this really clear map of the situation. So in this example, the forces working against the change, things like cost and staff here, they add up to a score of 11. But the forces pushing for it only add up to 10. And right there, that's the key insight. You now know exactly where you need to focus your energy. You can either try to strengthen the drivers, or what's often more effective, you figure out ways to weaken those restraints. It gives you a strategic playbook. So how do you actually weaken those restraining forces?
Well, here are some of the key tactics. The best ones usually start with education and communication, just making sure everyone really understands the why behind the change. Getting people involved through participation is also huge. And of course, you have to provide support for the people who are struggling. At the end of the day, it's about bringing people along on the journey, not just shoving them forward.
All right, let's zoom out now and look at the big picture. All of these tools and models are fantastic for managing one specific change. But the ultimate goal isn't just to survive the next reorg. It's to build an entire organization that actually thrives on change. And that brings us to this really cool concept of the learning organization. So what is that? Well, a learning organization is one that has built the continuous capacity to adapt and change. It's not just reacting to things one by one. Its entire system, its DNA, is designed for constant learning and evolution. So what does a learning organization actually look like in the wild? Well, they're the kinds of places that have a real shared vision that everyone buys into. They encourage people to challenge and discard old ways of thinking. They see the company as a whole system of relationships, not just a bunch of silos. They communicate openly and they genuinely work together. That's pretty much the blueprint for being adaptable. Which really leaves us with this final crucial question. We've spent this time looking at how to manage a change when it comes at you. But maybe we need to shift our focus. Maybe the most important question isn't how do we manage this change, but rather, how do we build an organization that is ready for any change? That's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.